Part 124. I secretly got married to a super boss. Author, Dance Lightly. Chapter 1231. Chapter 1231. You really don't know? Xiao Mian thought about his series of performances and operations and felt that he must have misunderstood. Her look that was clearly possessive, okay. It is a possessive desire to hide him from others. He misunderstood that she was asking for a kiss. Forget it, thinking about the kiss just now, it felt good and she enjoyed it, so she didn't bother to explain anymore. He misunderstood, let him misunderstand. Okay, you go get busy. We'll go find Chen Chen if you finish your work early. After lingering, Xiao Mian reached out and pushed him, urging him to go to work. Mo Yesi didn't move. He lowered his head to the top of her hair and took a deep breath. His hoarse voice was indescribably and magnetic. Those things can't be done in a while, so we'd better deal with them when we get back. I'll clean them up. We can go find Chen Chen now. Xiao Mian knew that he was a very well-planned person, so she had no objection to his arrangement. She nodded and said, okay, let me talk to Chen Chen now. Mo Yesi lowered his head and kissed the top of her hair, then let go of her. I'll ask Wei Zheng to come in and tell him something. Mo Yesi. The moment he turned around, Xiao Mian suddenly remembered what she had just posted on Weibo, and reached out to hold him. Although she knew he wouldn't mind, she still had to tell him. Huh, the man turned back and looked at her with his charming eyes as deep as the night sky. Xiao Mian's heartbeat thumped, and she was shocked by her husband again. I just took a photo of you, she swallowed and said. I posted it on my Weibo, do you mind? Huh? You took a photo of me? When? Why did you suddenly remember to take a photo of me? The man was obviously a little surprised and asked several questions in a row. He was surprised because Xiao Mian rarely took photos of him. Just now Xiao Mian took out her phone, flipped to the Weibo post and handed it to him. I just saw it today that someone on the internet said you were a bad old man. Then I have to clarify, you are not what a bad old man. However, I just posted a photo of you immersed in work and didn't show much of your face. Do you know how exaggerated I am? In the comment section, a lot of people said they were your fans. Xiao Mian feels that this group of people is really exaggerated. You didn't even see your face, and you turned out to be a beauty fan? Mo Yesi nodded, indicating that he understood. He took the phone and looked at the photo Xiao Mian took of him. After looking at it for a while, the corners of his lips slowly raised. I clicked on the comment area and read it for a while. After a while, he handed the phone back to Xiao Mian. Thinking of a comment he had just seen in the comment area, he asked with some confusion, I just looked at your comment area. Someone said something about wanting to lick the screen. What does it mean? Cough cough cough. Xiao Mian was glad that she wasn't drinking water or something, otherwise she would have spit it out. You really don't know, she blinked, her eyes watery from the violent cough just now. Mo Yesi shook his head, I don't know. Xiao Mian originally wanted to say that he was only 26 years old and how could he not even know internet slang. But then I thought that he rarely checks Weibo, so I don't know if it's normal. Seeing how seriously he asked, Xiao Mian suppressed a smile and answered seriously, it means you are very handsome, so handsome that I can't help but lick the screen when I see your photo. End of this chapter. I secretly got married to a super boss. Author, Dance Lightly. Chapter 1232. Chapter 1232. She was thinking about how to speak. Mo Yesi frowned suddenly. His impression of the word screen licking was instantly bad. He doesn't want other women to lick the screen. If you want to lick him, only Xiao Mian can do it. However, Xiao Mian is his wife, she can do whatever she wants to him anytime, anywhere, and she doesn't seem to be guilty of licking the screen or anything. Mian. Mo Yesi grabbed Chiao Mianmian's hand, and under her slightly surprised gaze, he made a serious promise word for word, I am yours. I am yours at any time. So you don't have to worry about what other women say. What, they can never get me. Only you have the right to use me. Chiao Mianmian. He was suddenly so serious, which made her a little uncomfortable. But she loved hearing such sweet words. She looked into the man's deep and affectionate eyes, curved her lips and smiled. She took a step forward, stood on tiptoes and hooked her white arms around his neck. For the first time in her life, she said to him in a domineering and strong tone, well, Mo Yesi, you are mine. So you can't be tempted by any other woman except me. In this life, you can only belong to me. Asterisk. For Chiao Chen's convenience, Mo Yesi and Chiao Mianmian found a restaurant near his school. After arriving at the restaurant, the waiter led them to the private room they had reserved in advance. Wait for the waiter to leave. Chiao Chen sat across from the two of them with an uneasy look on his face. He clasped his hands together, raised his eyes and looked at Mo Yesi with twinkling eyes, then looked at Chiao Mianmian, sister, brother-in-law, what do you want from me? Is there something wrong with my surgery? Because he went to boarding school. So Chiao Mianmian usually looks for him during weekends and holidays. I rarely go to school to see him outside of holidays. Chiao Chen had a hunch that something was wrong. Looking at Chiao Mianmian's hesitant expression, he confirmed his suspicion. His sister is in trouble. Chiao Chen thought about it and felt that it was probably related to the surgery he was going to have. No, it has nothing to do with your surgery. Seeing the uneasiness on Chiao Chen's face, Chiao Mianmian was afraid that he would have random thoughts, so she immediately denied it. Your brother-in-law said that he will be able to perform surgery on you in a while, and there will be absolutely no problem with your surgery. Isn't it related to my surgery? Chiao Chen breathed a sigh of relief and became more curious at the same time. What is that? Sister, brother-in-law, you must have something to tell me when you come to me, right? Chiao Mianmian pursed her lips and turned her head to look at Mo Yesi. She was thinking about how to speak. No matter how good her relationship with Chiao Chen was, she didn't know how Chiao Chen would react if she knew his true life experience. Accept or not accept. But no matter what, Chiao Chen still had to tell this matter. Mo Yesi met her eyes, took one of her hands and squeezed it gently, telling her not to worry with his eyes. Then, he took her hand and turned his gaze to Chiao Chen. After thinking for a moment, he said slowly, Chen, your sister and I called you out today. We really have something to tell you. Chiao Chen had already guessed it, so his reaction was calm. Well, sister, brother-in-law, just tell me directly. He paused, obviously still very nervous, but pretending to be very calm. No matter what happens, I can bear it. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I secretly got married to a super boss. Author, Dance Lightly. Chapter 1233. Chapter 1233, The identification result cannot be wrong. Good. Mo Yesi narrowed his eyes, and after a few seconds of silence, he said, Chen, this matter is related to your life experience. Is it related to my life experience? Chiao Chen was stunned for a moment, his eyes full of doubts, and he asked Chiao Mianmian in confusion, Sister, what do you mean by brother-in-law? Chen, you. Chiao Mianmian took a deep breath. After she calmed down a little, she met Chiao Chen's eyes. After thinking about it, she told him directly, do you remember that day when we went to visit your brother-in-law home? Is there an uncle who looks like you? Chiao Chen, I remember. It was because he looked so similar to him that he was deeply impressed. Jiao Mian was silent for a moment, and then continued, Chen, he is actually your biological father. Seeing Jiao Chen's eyes widened in shock and astonishment, Mo Yesi gently patted the back of Jiao Mian's hand and said the next words for her, Chen, I'm sorry for hiding something from you. That day you saw the person who arrived who looks very similar to you is my second uncle. He once had a son who was taken away shortly after he was born, and his whereabouts have been unknown ever since. My second uncle has also been looking for him over the years, but finding someone in a vast sea of people is undoubtedly as difficult as finding a needle in a haystack. And the reason why the child was taken away was because of internal fighting in some families. He was taken away by gangsters. So our family had no hope for the child. Everyone thought he's long gone. That day when I took you back, Grandma discovered that you looked very much like your second uncle. Calculating your age, you were also the same age as your second uncle's missing son. Grandma became suspicious and asked me to investigate some things. Chen Mo Yesi looked at Jiao Chen's expression of disbelief, paused, and said in a deep voice, my people investigated and found that you were taken back from the orphanage by someone from the Jiao family. Also, that day, without your knowledge, I took your hair and did a paternity test with my second uncle. The identification results show that you are biological father and son. Mo Yesi said and winked at Jiao Mian. Jiao Mian took out the identification certificate from her bag. She looked at Jiao Chen with complex eyes, with care and worry in her eyes, and handed over the appraisal certificate. Chen, this is the appraisal certificate. You, take a look. Jiao Chen looked at her in shock, and then looked down at the appraisal certificate in her hand. After a while, he seemed to come back to his senses, slowly stretched out his hand and took the appraisal certificate. After a while, Jiao Mian looked at Jiao Chen's fingers holding the appraisal certificate as if they were trembling. Neither she nor Mo Yesi spoke, silently waiting for Jiao Chen to finish reading. Jiao Chen should have finished reading it long ago. Judging from his reaction at the moment, it seems that he cannot accept this fact for a while. After waiting for several minutes, Jiao Chen slowly raised his head and finally had some reaction. Sister, so you and I are not biological siblings. Jiao Chen's eyes were a little red, and his fists clenched tightly. Chen, no matter whether we are related by blood or not, in my heart you are my biological brother. For the rest of my life, Jiao Mian said word by word. Jiao Chen pursed his lips and looked down at the paternity test again. It is written clearly and clearly. The identification results cannot be wrong. End of this chapter. I secretly got married to a super boss. Author, Dance Lightly. Chapter 1234. Chapter 1234. You have the right to choose freely. Jiao Chen also knew that Mo Yesi would not be able to deceive him about such a thing. He thought of the man he had seen that night. At that time, he felt that something was wrong with the way the man looked at him. That man looked very much like him, and Jiao Chen was particularly surprised when he first saw him. So, are they father and son? That's why they look so similar. I'm going to the bathroom. Mo Yesi could see that the two siblings must have something to say, and Jiao Chen might find it inconvenient for him to be here. He made an excuse to leave, got up, and walked out of the box. There were only two people left in the box, Jiao Chen and Jiao Mian. Jiao Mian looked at Jiao Chen's appearance and felt a little distressed. Chen, I know you may not be able to accept this for a while. But, no matter whether you are from the Jiao family or not, whose blood is flowing through you blood, in my heart, you will always be my most beloved brother. Our relationship will not change in any way because of this incident. Unless you don't want me as your sister anymore. How is that possible? Jiao Chen immediately said excitedly, Sister, you are my sister for life. I don't care about the Jiao family or the Mo family. Anyway, you are my closest relative. Sister, I just think it's too sudden. Jiao Chen was like a child lost at a crossroads, with a confused and uneasy look on his face. How come I have become a child of the Mo family? My surname is Jiao, and I grew up in the Jiao family. Dad also said that I am his biological son. But now. Jiao Chen clenched his fists. Sister, is this real? Why do I feel like I'm dreaming? Chen, I understand how you feel now. Jiao Mian stood up, slowly walked to him and sat down. She took his trembling hand and squeezed it hard. I know you can't accept it for a while. This reality. Your brother-in-law and I are just telling you the truth. Whether you want to return to the Mo family or whether to recognize your biological father, we will not interfere with your decision. You should think about it carefully. No matter what decision you make, I will support you. Sister Jiao Chen's eyes were red, his voice was choked, and there was obvious fear and uneasiness in his eyes. He held Jiao Mianmian's hand tightly. No matter what happens in the future, we will always be siblings, right? Our relationship will not change in any way because of other things, right? Of course, no matter what happens, Chen is my favorite brother. Jiao Mian noticed the uneasiness of the young man next to her and comforted her softly. Chen, don't feel any psychological burden. Both you and your brother-in-law think you should know the truth, but no one will force you to make a choice. You have the right to choose freely. The young man's clear and dark eyes flickered, looking dazed and at a loss, as well as a little confused. He looked at Jiao Mian blankly. Is it okay for me to choose no matter what I choose? Well, you can choose whatever you want. No one will force me. Won't. Sister, I want to think about it carefully. Jiao Chen was silent for a long time. The confusion in his eyes gradually faded away, and he seemed to have begun to accept the facts. He looked at Jiao Mian, paused, and said softly, I will think about it carefully. Asterisk. The other side. Jiao Angzhen looked nervously at Mrs. Bai sitting opposite her, feeling both anxious and expectant. End of this chapter. I secretly got married to a super boss. Author, Dance Lightly. Chapter 1235. Chapter 1235, Could I be your daughter? She waited and worried all night. I am very afraid that Mrs. Bai will not react in the future. Fortunately, she finally received a call from Mrs. Bai. Jiao Angzhen calmed down, suppressed the excitement in her heart, and pretended to be calm. Mrs. Bai, I don't know what you want to see me for. Mrs. Bai looked at her with complicated emotions. After a moment of silence, she said, Miss Jiao, you told me yesterday that you were the adopted daughter of the Jiao family. Yes. That mark on your body was branded by your parents in order to recognize your relatives in the future. Jiao Angzhen took a deep breath, clenched her fists, and said with her heart beating faster, yes. Ms. Jiao, I think I'd better say what I have to say directly. Mrs. Bai picked up the coffee on the table and took a sip. She raised her eyes and glanced at Jiao Angzhen, who was sitting opposite her. Her mood was indescribably bad. Even though she knew that the girl opposite was most likely the daughter she had been looking for, she still doesn't have a good impression of her. Has no intention of getting close to her at all. If Jiao Angzhen is really her daughter, that would be quite sad. She does not like her biological daughter, but she is extremely fond of a girl who is not related to her by blood. Miss Jiao, I once had a daughter. Because of some things that happened back then, I had to give her to one of my husband's subordinates. In order to recognize her in the future, I put a red mark on her body. Jiao Angzhen suddenly opened her eyes wide and pretended to be extremely shocked. Mrs. Bai, you. Mrs. Bai looked directly at her. The mark on Miss Jiao is the same as the mark I put on my daughter. You are not the biological daughter of the Jiao family, and your biological parents also had to deal with the disaster that year. You give it to someone else to raise. Over the years, we have been looking for Xiaoqi. Xiaoqi is the nickname I gave my daughter. She was also born on the 7th day of July. All the deeds of Miss Jiao are exactly the same as those of my daughter. Therefore, the reason why I asked Miss Jiao out this time is to ask you to go to the hospital for a paternity test. I know that telling you this suddenly will be difficult for you to accept for a while. But I have been looking for Xiao for more than 70 years. If you are really Xiaoqi, I hope that mother and daughter can recognize each other soon. Qiao Angzhen's hand shook suddenly and knocked the coffee on the table to the ground. Her face was filled with disbelief and shock. Mrs. Bai, you mean, I might be your daughter? Yes, but I'm not sure yet. Looking at her extremely shocked look, Mrs. Bai finally softened her heart. She sighed softly and said in a gentle tone, "Xin, didn't you say that you still want to recognize your biological parents? Are you willing to go to the hospital with me for a paternity test?" Qiao Angzhen was very excited inside, but her face looked frightened and at a loss. She looked at Mrs. Bai blankly, and her eyes turned red as she looked at her. "Mrs. Bai, are you really my mother?" Qiao Angzhen bit her lips, tears welling up in the corners of her eyes. She looked at Mrs. Bai pitifully and said in a choked voice, I'm not dreaming." Mrs. Bai was originally a soft-hearted and kind-hearted person. Even though she was not happy with Qiao Angzhen, looking at her pitiful appearance, she thought that if this was really her daughter, she would be the mother who owed her no matter what. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I secretly got married to a super boss. Author, Dance Lightly. Chapter 1236. Chapter 1236, The Relationship Between Mother and Daughter. No matter how much you don't like it, it's just a piece of flesh that has fallen off her body. How could she dislike it? Her voice became softer and softer, and she took out the handkerchief she carried with her from her bag and handed it over. "Stop crying, wipe your tears quickly. There are some things I can't say too fully now. You and Xiaoqi's circumstances are almost exactly the same, and you are the same age. That's why I hope to do a paternity test." Mrs. Bai was silent for a moment, and then said, "If you are really Xiaoqi, and you are willing to recognize us, your father and I will definitely make up for you and love you in the future. Whatever we can do for you, we will do for you." Qiao Angzhen raised her already red and swollen eyes. She spoke, her voice hoarse and choked with sobs. "Mrs. Bai, I do. I have always missed my biological parents, and I have always wanted to find them. I originally thought there was no hope in this life, but now, regardless of whether I am your daughter or not, I am willing to undergo a paternity test. Even if there is only 1% chance, I want to find my biological parents. I really, really miss them." As she spoke, tears fell on her face one by one, looking more and more pitiful and heartwarming. Mrs. Bai couldn't bear to see it. Looking at Qiao Angzhen at this time, she felt less disgusted. She sighed heavily in her heart. Alas, she is a poor child after all. She shouldn't be too prejudiced against her. Asterisk. Hospital. After drawing blood, Mrs. Bai and Qiao Angzhen were nervously waiting for the identification results. While waiting, Mrs. Bai called Bai Yisheng. Bai Yisheng asked her about the situation, and she told the truth. "The identification results haven't come out yet." "Not yet, but it will be soon." Mrs. Bai clenched the phone, her nervous palms sweating. "Yisheng, I'm so nervous now. Tell me, what would you do if she was really your sister?" Bai Yisheng was silent for a while. "Mom, you wait for the results first. I'm done here, I'll be there right away." Okay, Mrs. Bai said hurriedly, "Come here quickly. If you are here, I won't be so panicked." Within a minute of MRS by hanging up the phone, the doctor came out with the test results. MRS by, the paternity test results for you and Miss Jiao have come out. The doctor walked up to her and said respectfully. MRS by's heart tightened and she quickly asked, the result, what is the result? Beside her, Jiao Angzhen was even more nervous than she was. Even though she knew that Shenro had arranged everything in advance and nothing would go wrong, she still felt a little uneasy when the results didn't come out. There was unconcealable nervousness on her face and eyes. When she spoke, her voice trembled slightly. Yes, doctor, what will the result be like? Her nervousness this time was not faked. The doctor glanced at her, his eyes flashed, and handed the appraisal sheet to MRS by. MRS by, according to the appraisal results, it shows that you and Miss Jiao are related by blood, mother and daughter. MRS by took the order and raised her head suddenly. The doctor smiled slightly. The test results are all on the list. MRS by can take a look. If you have any questions, you can ask them. Jiao Angzhen secretly breathed a sigh of relief when he heard the doctor's results. She spread her palms, which were so nervous that they were sweating, and thought that from this moment on, she would be the prestigious daughter of the Bai family. She felt ecstatic in her heart, and the excitement and joy in her eyes could hardly be suppressed. Happy weekend everyone. Don't worry, Bai Yusheng is not that easy to deceive. End of this chapter. I secretly got married to a super boss. Author, Dance Lightly. Chapter 1237. Chapter 1237. I have to accept the reality. MRS Bai held the appraisal list and was stunned for a while, then she lowered her head and took the list and read it carefully. After a moment, her fingers holding the identification form trembled slightly, and she slowly raised her head. The appraisal form clearly stated that according to the appraisal results, she and Jiao Angzhen were related as mother and daughter. At this moment, MRS Bai's mood was extremely complicated. Because she had long since determined that Jiao Mian was her daughter. She also trusts her instincts. She fell in love with Jiao Mian as soon as she saw him. This love was different from her love for Shenro. She felt that it was because she and Jiao Mian were mother and daughter, and Jiao Mian had her blood flowing through her, that she felt a special affection for her as soon as she met her. She didn't have these feelings with Jiao Angzhen. Even now that the identification results have come out, she doesn't feel very happy inside. In her heart, there was an indescribable sense of loss. MRS Bai felt that she should not have such thoughts. No matter how bad Jiao Angzhen is, it has now been confirmed that she is Xiaoqi. How could she dislike her own daughter so much? But she didn't want to deceive herself. The loss in her heart was really greater than the joy of finding her daughter. Doctor, are MRS Bai and I really related as mother and daughter? Jiao Angzhen also saw that MRS Bai did not look too happy. She hated it in her heart, but she felt happy and proud at the same time. So what if MRS Bai doesn't like her? Is it possible that we can do without her as a daughter? She doesn't need to be liked by the Bai family. As long as she has the status of being the daughter of the Bai family, she can easily get everything she wants in the future. As for whether MRS Bai and Bai Yusheng like her or not, it is not that important. Don't they like Jiao Mian very much? But now that the identification results are out, can they still treat Jiao Mian as well as before? Yes, Miss Jiao. The doctor looked at her and said, according to the identification results, you and MRS Bai are indeed mother and daughter. Here, I would like to congratulate MRS Bai and Miss Jiao for finally recognizing each other as mother and daughter. Jiao Angzhen immediately covered her mouth, her eyes turned red instantly, and she looked at MRS Bai with tears in her eyes. MRS Bai also slowly turned her head and looked at her with complicated eyes. After the doctor finished speaking, he turned and left. Other irrelevant people also left one after another. The corridor suddenly became quiet. Xiao Angzhen's tears fell one by one, she bit her lips and looked at Mrs. Bai without saying anything. Xin, I didn't expect that you are really my daughter now. Mrs. Bai had to accept the reality, and she also tried to accept it slowly from the bottom of her heart. Xiao Angzhen has indeed not grown into what she likes. She likes girls like Xiao Mian who are well behaved and kind. However, no matter how many shortcomings Xiao Angzhen has, even if she cannot fall in love with this daughter in a short time, she is still her biological daughter. She is the biological daughter she has been searching for and in debt for 18 years. She should stop being prejudiced. Looking at Xiao Angzhen's face full of tears at this time, Mrs. Bai couldn't help feeling guilty because she owed her so many years. She walked over, gently took Xiao Angzhen's hand, and said warmly, Angzhen, are you still willing to recognize me as your mother? It was really not my intention to give you away back then. It was just to protect you, but no matter what, Mom owes you for not being able to be by your side for more than 10 years. End of this chapter. I secretly got married to a super boss. Author, Dance Lightly. Chapter 1238. Chapter 1238, Feelings can be cultivated slowly. No matter what decision you make, Mom can understand you. Mrs. Bai. Xiao Angzhen seemed to have cried to death, her shoulders twitched, and she sobbed, am I really not dreaming? Are you really my mother? It is true. Mrs. Bai still doesn't like Xiao Angzhen. But she still couldn't bear to see her own daughter crying like this. She hesitated for a few seconds, stretched out her hand, gently took Xiao Angzhen into her arms, and comforted her in a soft voice, as long as you are willing to recognize me, of course I am your mother. Angzhen, don't cry, it's my mother who is sorry for you, I couldn't find you earlier. Are you willing to give Mom a chance to make up for it? How about you go home with your mother? Your father, me, and your brother will treat you well from now on. Xiao Angzhen fell into her arms, holding her and crying even more sadly. She was sobbing non-stop and her body seemed to be shaking. Seeing her like this, Mrs. Bai became even more intolerable. She thought that it would be okay even if she didn't like Xiao Angzhen now. Emotions can be cultivated slowly. Some of her shortcomings and disadvantages can be corrected slowly in the future. She cannot reject this daughter from the bottom of her heart and be unwilling to open her heart to accept her just because she does not like her. Even though Xiao Angzhen is a beggar now. Doesn't she want it? Her Xiaoqi is able to live healthy and safe until now, which is already a very fortunate thing. As for the rest, she shouldn't ask for too much. Thinking of this, Mrs. Bai's mood has calmed down a lot, and she is no longer as repulsive to Xiao Angzhen as she was at the beginning. She really likes that child Xiao Mian. It's just that they no longer have the bond of mother and daughter in this life. However, Xiao Angzhen and Xiao Mian are also sisters now. She recognizes Xiao Angzhen, and she actually has a mother-daughter relationship with Xiao Mian. After Mrs. Bai comforted herself in her heart, she felt a little better. I. Xiao Angzhen naturally had the same intention in her heart, but she pretended to be embarrassed and hesitant on her face, but if I go back to the Bai family, my adoptive parents will definitely be sad. They raised me, I can't just abandon them. Because of Xiao Angzhen's words, Madame Bai's impression of her changed a lot in an instant. She likes filial children. At this time, Xiao Angzhen could still remember her adoptive father and adoptive mother, and take into account the feelings of her adoptive father and adoptive mother, which added a lot to Mrs. Bai's heart. Of course I don't want you to abandon them. Your adoptive father and mother raised you, and it would be heartless for you to abandon them. Don't worry, even if our mother and daughter recognize each other, they are still your father and mother. Letting you return to the Bai family does not mean that you abandon your previous home. From now on, whether it is the Xiao family or the Bai family, it will be your home. Our family must thank your adoptive parents for their kindness to you. A great favor to our Bai family. If you are willing, you will have 2 homes in the future. If you don't want to. Before Mrs. Bai could finish her words, Xiao Angzhen raised her eyes, which were red and swollen from crying, and said with longing, I do. I think you have been thinking about it for more than 10 years. I have always wanted to find my biological child parents. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I secretly got married to a super boss. Author, Dance Lightly. Chapter 1239. Chapter 1239. Still doubting her. Mrs. Bai, I can. Xiao Angzhen's face showed anxiety and nervousness, she bit her lips tightly, her eyes showed uneasiness and caution, and she said intermittently, Can I call you Mom? Of course, we are mother and daughter. Seeing her crying, Mrs. Bai's eyes and nose were red, and her face was covered with tears. She sighed softly and couldn't bear to reach out to wipe the tears on her face. Xin, so are you willing to recognize me as your mother? Xiao Angzhen nodded heavily. She looked at Mrs. Bai with tears in her eyes for a while, opened her mouth, and called out softly, Mom. Mrs. Bai's eyes became wet when she shouted out. Looking at Xiao Angzhen, she was filled with emotion. She had been looking for her daughter for more than 10 years and finally found her daughter. From now on, their family of 4 will be truly reunited. Asterisk. Bai Yusheng hurried home and walked into the hall, where he saw Mrs. Bai and Xiao Angzhen sitting on the sofa talking. Mrs. Bai held her hand with a gentle expression. Hearing the footsteps, Mrs. Bai raised her head. When she saw Bai Yusheng, a smile appeared on her face and said, Yusheng, you are back. Come over quickly and talk to your sister. We were talking about you just now. Younger sister? Bai Yusheng glanced at Xiao Angzhen, who was sitting with Mrs. Bai, a sneer slowly curled up at the corner of his lips, and he walked slowly over. Mom, there is nothing wrong with the test results, Bai Yusheng asked directly in front of Xiao Angzhen without caring about Xiao Angzhen's feelings. You just asked the doctor to do it once. Didn't you do it a few more times? Mrs. Bai was stunned for a moment, and her face changed slightly. Yusheng, what are you talking about? Where can I find someone who has appraised it several times? Bai Yusheng raised her lips, but there was no smile in her eyes. I only appraised it once. Maybe it was wrong. In my opinion, it needs to be appraised several times to be safe. Our Bai family is also a reputable family, even if we recognize relatives, and we can't just accept it casually. Mom, our family has been looking for Xiaoqi for 18 years. If we find the wrong person, and let some people with evil intentions take advantage of some loopholes and replace her with someone else, wouldn't it be a joke? When Bai Yusheng said these words, he looked straight at Xiao Angzhen. Xiao Angzhen raised her head and met his sharp and scrutinizing eyes, her heart thumped, and her eyes instantly showed panic. She originally thought that the matter of recognizing her relatives was already a certainty by now, and there would be no chance of any surprises happening again. After all, with the identification results, even if Mrs. Bai and Bai Yusheng had doubted her before, they should dispel their doubts now. Moreover, Mrs. Bai has indeed accepted her now. Just now, Mrs. Bai was still telling her that she would choose a time tomorrow to meet with Father Chiao and Mother Chiao to talk about bringing her back to the Bai family. Mrs. Bai also said that because she had suffered a lot of grievances over the years, she could not just take her back to the Bai family. At that time, a banquet will be held, and some relatives and friends will be invited to formally introduce her to them. No matter how you look at it, Mrs. Bai has completely believed her. She didn't expect that Bai Yusheng would still doubt her after the identification results came out. And he still doubted her to her face. Obviously, he did not recognize her as his sister. The appraisal was inherently fraudulent. So facing Bai Yusheng's scrutiny, Qiao Angzhen still felt guilty. She glanced at him and quickly lowered her head, not daring to look at him again. End of this chapter. I secretly got married to a super boss. Author, Dance Lightly. Chapter 1240. Chapter 1240. I don't agree with this result. Brother, don't you believe me? Do you think I've deceived you? I know I'm not good enough now. Brother must look down on me, so he doesn't want to recognize me. Qiao Angzhen panicked for a while, then pretended to be sad. He looked aggrieved, stretched out his hand to rub his eyes, and said aggrievedly, "But, brother, you can look down on me, why do you want to frame me?" Qiao Angzhen's eyes turned red as she spoke. Can a paternity test be faked? Mom went with me. If I did something, would she not know? What's more, if Mom hadn't told me, I don't even know that I'm actually from the Bai family. Yusheng Mrs. Bai frowned and said disapprovingly, "Why are you speaking so harshly? You are trying to take advantage of the situation by pretending to be someone else. I took your sister to do the paternity test, and I also found a doctor. Your sister was forced to be separated from us for more than 10 years, and now we finally recognize her. Not only did you, the elder brother, not be kind to her and let her feel the warmth of the family, why did you say these words to make her sad?" Mrs. Bai knows what Bai Yusheng is thinking. After all, she felt the same way at the beginning. However, the paternity test results have come out, and she has slowly accepted this fact. Yet, Bai Yusheng still looked cold and indifferent. "Mom, if she is really Zioki, I will naturally be nice to her. I am just such a sister. Not only should I be nice to her, I will also love her like a baby. Pamper her and protect her forever. But your so-called paternity test seems to me to be too casual and not rigorous enough. Therefore, I do not approve of the result. Since I do not approve, of course I will not treat her as a sister now." So, Bai Yusheng did not ignore the panic and guilt that flashed in Qiao Angzhen's eyes. His cold eyes fell on her face, stayed there for a few seconds, then turned away with half-squinted eyes and said, "Why should I let her feel the warmth of my family? Yusheng, you..." "Mom." Qiao Angzhen suddenly stood up. Her eyes were red, her face was full of grievances and hurts, and she said in a choked voice, "I think I'd better leave. I don't seem to be welcome here. The Bai family is indeed a famous family, and my current status is not high enough. Since Mr. Bai thinks that I am deceiving, then just think that I am really deceiving. I never thought I could get my family back anyway. Now that I know who my biological parents are, I'm very satisfied. As for identifying my relatives, it's not important anymore." After she finished speaking, she covered her mouth and turned to leave. "Xin, don't leave." Mrs. Bai immediately stood up to stop her and reached out to hold her. "Mom, someone doesn't welcome me here," Qiao Angzhen said aggrievedly. "I still won't stay." "Who said that? There is no one who doesn't welcome you." Mrs. Bai turned around and glared at Bai Yusheng with a frown. "You stay here and don't leave. This will be your home from now on. Your brother must have some misunderstanding to say those things. Just stay here and I'll go talk to your brother." After Mrs. Bai finished speaking, she called a few maids over. "Please treat the lady well." The maids all knew Qiao Angzhen's identity and were naturally very respectful to the newly found young lady. This is the young lady that the Bai family has been looking for more than 10 years. End of this chapter.